A crimson stain, vivid as a scream against the sterile gray of the maintenance corridor, was the first thing he saw. Dr. Asher Hayes, veterinarian of the forgotten Nexus 7 station, was used to blood, but this was different. This was alien, shimmering with an unnatural bioluminescence under the flickering service lights. It led him not to a wounded cargo hauler or a sick pet, but to a creature of impossible beauty, crumpled near an emergency airlock. Its fur, a breathtaking pattern of silver and white stripes, was matted with the glowing crimson blood. It was dying. Energy weapon wounds, precise and cruel, marred its flank. This was no accident. It was an execution. As he knelt, the creature's eyes snapped open, a pair of amber irises set against black sclera, intelligent and filled with a terror that ripped through Asher's soul. Without a second thought for his own safety, he gathered the creature into his arms. It was heavier than it looked, dense with muscle, and it let out a pained hiss that vibrated through his bones, its claws instinctively digging into his forearm, not with malice, but with the desperate strength of the dying. Ignoring the sting, he murmured, "I've got you. I'm here to help." He had no idea he was cradling the heart of an empire, a sacred bond made flesh, and that this single act of compassion had just declared his life forfeit. The assassins who had left this magnificent being to bleed out in the station's guts were still nearby, and they would not tolerate witnesses. He was no longer just a vet. He was a loose end. Asher stumbled into his clinic, the creature's life fading in his arms. "Miri, full xenobiology scan priority alpha," he yelled, gently laying the animal on his primary examination table. His automated assistant, a chirpy voice he usually found soothing, replied, "Dr. Hayes, you are bleeding again. My cleaning protocols are becoming overworked." "Mute all non-essential protocols now!" Asher commanded, his focus entirely on the dying creature. The scanner's blue light washed over the striped fur, and Asher worked with frantic precision, applying stasis gel to the worst of the wounds, his mind racing. The creature was feline, but no species he'd ever cataloged. The energy burns were deep, cauterizing as they cut, designed to inflict maximum pain and a slow, agonizing death. "Who would do this?" The scanner beeped, its findings flashing on the main screen. Unknown species. Closest genetic match, Felis sapiens, Thayan variant. Confidence, 82%. Asher froze, the regenerative syringe trembling in his hand. "That's impossible." Felis sapiens were the Thayans, a powerful, aristocratic, and fiercely private humanoid species from the Cygnus quadrant. They were rulers, not pets. This had to be an animal, an incredibly evolved one, but an animal nonetheless. Suddenly, the creature's eyes locked onto his, and it let out a low growl, not of aggression, but of warning. It then deliberately lifted a paw, tapping it against the screen displaying its own genetic information. A jolt, like static electricity mixed with a whisper of thought, passed through the table into Asher's hand. A single fragmented image flashed in his mind. A throne room. A young woman with the same silver-striped fur and amber eyes, and a wave of overwhelming love and loyalty. "My God," Asher whispered, pulling his hand back. "You're not just like them. You're connected to them." He administered a mild sedative, enough to dull the agony without rendering the creature unconscious. As its muscles relaxed, its breathing steadied, and it sank onto the table with a sound that was unnervingly close to a human sigh of relief. The completed scan results painted a picture that deepened the mystery. Its internal structure was a marvel of biological engineering, redundant circulatory systems, a reinforced skeletal lattice, and neural pathways of a complexity that rivaled sentient species. This was no mere animal. This was a masterpiece, a living work of art, and someone had tried to destroy it. 4 grueling hours later, Asher collapsed into his chair, drained but triumphant. The creature, whom he had started thinking of as Nyx, was stable, sleeping peacefully in a sealed recovery chamber. He had stitched together treatment protocols from 3 different species, a risky cocktail of xenobiological guesswork that had, against all odds, worked. Just as he was about to succumb to exhaustion, his comm unit chimed with a Priority 1 station alert. Commander Taro's voice, tight with uncharacteristic stress, echoed in the silent clinic. "Attention all personnel. The Thean diplomatic vessel, Crimson Claw, has requested emergency docking. Security is elevated to level 1. All non-essential staff are confined to quarters until further notice." Asher's blood ran cold. He looked at the recovery chamber. Nyx was awake, ears flat against its skull, the amber eyes wide with a fear so profound it was almost contagious. The creature wasn't just scared of the ship. It was terrified of who was on it. "They're here for you, aren't they?" Asher whispered. Nyx pressed a paw against the transparent dome, and again, that strange, silent communication flowed between them. Not a picture this time, but a feeling, a torrent of betrayal, grief, and a desperate plea for protection. The station's speakers crackled to life again. "Dr. Hayes, report to Docking Bay 3 immediately. Bring your full xenomedical kit. We have a diplomatic situation." Asher looked from the summons to the terrified creature in the chamber. He knew with gut-wrenching certainty that handing Nyx over to the people on that ship was a death sentence. He was a veterinarian sworn to protect and heal. But this went beyond any oath. This was a choice between his quiet, ordered life and the life of this extraordinary being who had somehow trusted him. "No," he said, his voice firm. "You're not going anywhere." He gently pressed Nyx back down as the creature tried to rise. "You're too weak." "I'll handle this." Nyx let out a soft chirp, a sound of desperate protest, but its strength was gone. "Computer, secure recovery chamber 1. Medical override, Hayes Alpha 7. No access, no scans, no exceptions." As the clinic door slid shut behind him, Asher felt a tremor of fear. He was lying to his commanding officer, hiding a creature of immense political importance, and walking into a room with people who had likely ordered its execution. His quiet life on Nexus 7 was over. He had just stepped into the crossfire of an interstellar war, armed with nothing but a medical kit and a desperate, inexplicable need to protect the patient he'd just saved. 3 hours later, Asher returned to his clinic, his nerves frayed. The diplomatic situation had been a thinly veiled interrogation. 2 severe-looking Thean officials, their faces cold and impassive, had questioned him relentlessly about any unusual creatures he might have treated recently. Their eyes, a chillingly familiar shade of amber, had scanned him for any hint of deception. Asher had played the part of a clueless, overworked vet, citing station regulations and patient confidentiality until they had dismissed him with unconcealed disdain. He had lied, and he wasn't entirely sure why. A deep, primal instinct had screamed at him to protect Nyx from these cold, calculating individuals who referred to their missing asset with the detached air of someone discussing lost cargo. He keyed in the access code to his clinic, and the doors slid open to reveal his worst fear. The recovery chamber was empty, its thick glass dome shattered and pushed aside. "No," he breathed, dropping his kit. A faint pained growl came from under his main console. Asher knelt and peered into the shadows. Nyx was huddled in the corner, trembling, its amber eyes glowing with fever and fear. "You should not be moving," Asher said softly, his voice full of a tenderness that surprised him. "Your wounds could reopen." Nyx let out a series of soft clicks and chirps, and this time, the communication was clearer, a wave of gratitude mixed with a warning. "They are still here. They can feel me." "They can feel you?" Asher whispered. "Are you telepathic?" Nyx blinked slowly, a confirmation. The creature then winced, the effort of moving clearly agonizing. Asher gently scooped Nyx into his arms, noting again the surprising density of its body. "All right, back to bed with you." he murmured, placing Nix back onto the examination table. "Those officials, they're not just looking for you, they're hunting you." He checked the dressings. The regenerative gel was working, but the movement had strained the delicate new tissue. "Computer," he commanded, placing a fresh blood sample into the diagnostic unit. "Full genetic sequencing. Cross-reference with the Thean Royal Database. Use my highest clearance." While the machine whirred, Asher pulled a chair close. Sleep was a luxury he could no longer afford. He had to understand what he was dealing with. Nix watched him, its gaze filled with an ancient intelligence. "You're the key to something, aren't you?" Asher murmured. "Something they're willing to kill for." Nix's paw reached out, pressing against his hand. This time the connection was deliberate, a focused warmth that spread up his arm, carrying with it a sense of deep, unwavering trust. It was a bond, forged in desperation and sealed in blood. "Genetic analysis complete," the computer announced, its synthesized voice devoid of the bombshell it was about to drop. "Sample contains unique genetic markers consistent with the royal companion bond of the Thean dynasty, specifically linked to Her Excellency Baroness Kalira. Warning: Thean imperial law classifies the unauthorized possession or treatment of a royal companion as an act of high treason, punishable by immediate execution." Asher's heart stopped. A royal companion, not a pet, not an asset, but a creature psychically and genetically bonded to a member of the ruling family. Harming one was the same as attacking royalty itself. "Kalira," he whispered, the name feeling alien on his tongue. "What in the hell have I gotten myself into?" He immediately began hacking into restricted databases, slicing through layers of diplomatic encryption. The picture that emerged was terrifying. The Thean dynasty was on the brink of civil war. The old empress had died under suspicious circumstances months earlier, leaving her young, progressive daughter, Baroness Kalira, on the throne. Kalira was trying to open her isolationist people to the galaxy, a move that enraged the traditionalist factions at court. Her rule was fragile, her life under constant threat. And Nix was her weakness, her soul made manifest. A way to control her, to break her. A station-wide announcement ripped through the clinic, making him jump. "We are honored to announce the formal arrival of Her Excellency, Baroness Kalira of the Thean dynasty. All section heads will report to Docking Bay 1 for the reception." Nix let out a pained cry, struggling to stand, its eyes wild with a mixture of hope and terror. "That's your bonded," Asher said, the pieces clicking into place. "The real Baroness is here." But if she was here, who were the cold-eyed officials who had interrogated him? They had to be from the rival faction. They were here to capture or kill Nix before Kalira could find him. He had to hide Nix, and he had to do it now. "Computer, initiate medical quarantine protocol. Haze Sigma 9. A section of the rear wall slid away, revealing a small shielded stasis chamber designed for highly contagious pathogens. It was cramped and sterile. "I'm sorry," he said, gently lifting the creature. "But this is the only place you'll be safe from scans." Nix looked at him, and then did something that shattered the last of Asher's reservations. The creature leaned forward and pressed its forehead against his. The psychic connection bloomed, no longer fragmented but a clear, powerful wave of emotion. Trust, fear, hope, a desperate plea to protect its other half. "I will," Asher promised, his throat tight. "I swear it." As he sealed the hidden chamber, he knew he had crossed a line from which there was no return. He was committing a dozen interstellar crimes, but for the first time in his quiet, lonely life, he felt a profound sense of purpose. He scrubbed the blood from his hands, changed into a fresh uniform, and walked towards the reception. He had to meet this Baroness. He had to look into her eyes and decide if she was the source of the danger, or if, like her companion, She was just another victim in a gilded cage. The main reception hall of Nexus 7 had been hastily decorated, a pathetic attempt to mask its utilitarian origins with dusty ceremonial banners. Asher lingered at the back, his exhaustion a physical weight on his shoulders. Commander Taro, sweating in his dress uniform, spotted him and scowled. "Hayes, you look like you've been wrestling a gravity worm. Straighten up! This is a moment of historical importance for..." Taro's fawning was cut short as the grand doors hissed open. A hush fell. 4 imposing Thean guards entered first, their movements fluid and predatory, their black armor absorbing the light. They flanked the entrance, and then she appeared. Asher's breath caught. Baroness Kalira was a living echo of Nyx. Her fur was the same stunning silver-striped pattern, her form lithe and powerful beneath a deep crimson uniform. A simple circlet of black metal rested between her elegant, pointed ears. But it was her eyes that seized him. Amber irises against black sclera, holding a universe of intelligence, grief, and power. They swept the room with an unnerving coolness before landing on Commander Taro. "Your Excellency," Taro bowed so low his nose nearly touched his polished boots. "Your visit is an unexpected honor." "My visit was not planned, Commander." Kalira's voice was a melodic purr with an edge of steel. "I am searching for something that was stolen from me, something of infinite value." Asher saw her claws, long and black, extend slightly from her fingertips. "My chief of security has briefed me on your missing property," Taro stammered. A flicker of cold fury crossed Kalira's face. "My companion is not property, Commander. Nyx is the other half of my soul. Our bond is sacred." The name, her naming him Nyx, sent a jolt through Asher. He hadn't named him. He had somehow known his name. The connection was real. "My apologies," Taro said hastily. "I have assembled my department heads. We are at your disposal." Kalira's gaze moved down the line of nervous officers and stopped, locking on to Asher. He felt it like a physical touch, a shock of recognition that made the air crackle. Her pupils dilated. "And you are?" she asked, stepping towards him, her movements a study in predatory grace. Asher straightened, meeting her intense gaze. "Dr. Asher Hayes, Your Excellency, station xenobiologist and veterinarian." "A healer," she said, her tone unreadable. A flicker of something, hope perhaps, softened her features for a fraction of a second. "Tell me, Doctor, have you treated any unusual creatures in the last 72 hours? Every survival instinct screamed at him to lie. But looking into those eyes, so identical to the ones that had pleaded with him from the examination table, he found he couldn't. The lie caught in his throat. "The station sees a great deal of traffic," he said, choosing his words with surgical precision. "What one person considers unusual, another might consider a pet." A slow smile curved her lips, revealing the delicate, sharp tips of her fangs. "Perspective is indeed everything, Doctor." One of her guards leaned in, whispering urgently in her ear. Kalira's expression hardened into a mask of cold fury. "My advanced team has detected traces of Thean royal blood in the lower levels," she announced, her voice ringing with authority. Her gaze pinned Asher to the spot, near the medical facilities. Taro whirled on him. "Hayes, is there something you have failed to report?" Asher's mind raced. The shielded room should have been undetectable. Unless the bond was a two-way street. She could feel Nyx's presence just as the hunters could. He had to get her alone. "Your Excellency," Asher said, speaking directly to Kalira and ignoring his sputtering commander. "I believe this is a matter best discussed in private." A gasp rippled through the assembled crew. Taro's face turned purple. "Dr. Hayes, you are out of line. You will answer Her Excellency now, or you will be..." "I will speak with the doctor." Kalira declared, silencing terror with a single imperious gesture. Alone. Her guards bristled. Your Excellency, that is unwise, the lead guard began. That was not a request, Ravik, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous purr. The doctor and I will use your conference room. We are not to be disturbed. The guard, Ravik, shot Asher a look of pure hatred before bowing stiffly. As Asher followed the Baroness from the hall, he felt the weight of every stare. He had just defied his commander and sequestered himself with one of the most powerful figures in the quadrant. He was either about to be executed or about to save a life. There was no longer any middle ground. The moment the conference room door sealed them in, Kalira's regal composure shattered. She spun on him, her body vibrating with a desperate, frantic energy. Where is he? She demanded, her voice breaking. I can feel his pain. Tell me where Nix is now! I saved his life, Asher said, his voice steady despite his hammering heart. He was ambushed. Shot with military-grade energy weapons and left to die. I found him 3 days ago. Kalira's eyes widened, a storm of emotions passing through them. Disbelief, horror, and a sliver of hope. 3 days? He has been missing for over a week. I feared he was gone forever. She turned away, her shoulders trembling. The proud Baroness momentarily lost to a grief so profound it was suffocating. Acting on pure instinct, Asher reached out and placed a hand on her arm. He's alive. He's weak, but he's healing. I have him hidden and safe. She stiffened at his touch, but didn't pull away. She turned back, and the sight of moisture glistening on her fur, just below those alien eyes, cracked something open in his chest. Take me to him, she whispered. Not a command, but a desperate plea. In that instant, Asher knew. Whatever conspiracy was at play, she was not a part of it. The bond between them was real, a love so powerful he could almost feel the echo of it himself. This way, he said, leading her to a service corridor. But we avoid your guards, especially the one you called Ravik. I don't trust him. Kalira's expression turned to ice. Nor should you. He is my cousin, and he leads the faction that wishes to see me deposed. He was one of the officials who questioned you. She moved closer, her scent a strange, intoxicating mix of exotic spice and clean ozone. Dr. Hayes, Asher, if you have truly saved Nix, you have a debt from me that can never be repaid. But you must understand, by helping him, you have placed yourself in grave danger. Ravik will not hesitate to eliminate you to get to him. A thrill, a terrifying and exhilarating mix of fear and purpose shot through him. Then we'd better be quick, he said. As they slipped through the station's hidden corridors, Asher knew his life had irrevocably intertwined with theirs. He was no longer a simple veterinarian. He was a protector, a co-conspirator, and perhaps a dead man walking. And he wouldn't have it any other way. The reunion was a silent, sacred thing. The moment Asher opened the hidden chamber, Nix, despite his weakness, scrambled forward, making a sound that was a mix of a cry and a purr. Kalira fell to her knees, gathering her companion in her arms, burying her face in his striped fur. She murmured his name over and over in her native tongue, her words a soft, flowing river of relief and love. Asher watched from a distance, feeling like an intruder on a moment of profound intimacy. The psychic bond between them was palpable in the small room, a warm, glowing energy that seemed to push back the sterile cold of the clinic. After several long minutes, she looked up at Asher, her amber eyes shimmering. You saved him, she said, her voice thick with emotion. The palace physicians themselves could not have done better. How? I had to improvise, Asher admitted, his gaze falling on the complex diagnostic readings still displayed on the main screen. His biology is extraordinary. The bond you share is more than psychic. It's physiological. Your genetic markers are woven together. It's like a form of biological quantum entanglement. Kalira gently stroked Nyx's head, her expression shifting from relief to a familiar, calculating intensity. My cousin Ravik, he orchestrated this. He knew that by capturing or killing Nyx, he could break me, force me to abdicate. He staged this diplomatic mission to hunt him down after his assassins failed. They didn't fail, Asher corrected grimly. They were precise. The wounds were designed for a slow, agonizing death. They wanted you to find him dying, to suffer with him. The full, monstrous scope of the plot settled over them. Ravik hadn't just wanted to remove a political obstacle. He wanted to torture his cousin, to use the sacred bond against her in the most sadistic way possible. The clinic door suddenly exploded inward in a shower of molten metal and sparks. The force of the blast threw them both across the room. Alarms blared as smoke and the acrid smell of ozone filled the air. Asher's ears rang as he pushed himself to his feet, his gaze frantically searching for Kalira. He saw her through the haze, shielding Nyx with her own body, a deep gash on her forehead bleeding freely. "Get down!" she hissed, as two armored figures, bearing Ravik's personal insignia, stormed through the ruined doorway, pulse disruptors raised. Without a moment's hesitation, Asher lunged for a cabinet of medical supplies, his hand closing around a high-pressure canister of aerosol cryosedative. As the first assassin took aim at Kalira, Asher spun and hurled the canister. It struck the assassin's helmet, rupturing on impact and enveloping both attackers in a cloud of instantly freezing gas. Their movements seized, their armor frosting over as the powerful sedative attacked their nervous systems. But the second assassin squeezed off a shot before collapsing, a searing beam of white-hot energy lancing through the smoke. Kalira twisted, but the beam caught her in the shoulder. She cried out, a sharp, agonized sound, and crumpled to the floor. "Emergency lockdown! Medical override, Omega-7. Asher roared, his voice cracking. Armored blast doors slammed down over the doorway as he scrambled to her side. Nyx let out a keening howl of shared pain, dragging himself towards his bonded, despite his own injuries. Blood, the same shimmering crimson as Nyx's, flowed from Kalira's wound. "The same weapon?" she gasped, her face pale with shock and pain. "It's a cellular disruptor." A chilling realization washed over Asher. Standard regenerative therapies would be useless. The weapon didn't just burn, it unraveled tissue at a molecular level. "They planned this," Kalira said through gritted teeth, her fangs bared. "They knew even if I found Nyx, they would have a second chance at me. This station was a trap." "Not if I can help it," Asher said, his mind racing, sifting through years of forbidden research and radical theories. "There's an experimental procedure, a cross-species tissue graft using a regenerative catalyst. It's highly unorthodox. It's never been attempted on a Thayan before." "Do it," she commanded, her amber eyes locking onto his, her trust absolute. "I am not dying in this forgotten corner of the galaxy." The procedure was intimate and intense. It required him to use his own blood as a base for the regenerative serum, his human DNA a shocking and alien intrusion into her royal bloodline. He had to manually regulate her 2 heartbeats, his hands pressed against her chest, feeling the frantic rhythm of her life under his palms. As he worked, their gazes remained locked, a silent, powerful communication passing between them that transcended words. In her eyes, he saw not a baroness, but a fighter. And in his, she saw not a simple vet, but a savior. As the serum began to take effect, the color slowly returned to her face. "Ravik has compromised the entire station," she whispered, her voice gaining strength. "Commander Taro must be in his pocket. We are alone and surrounded." "Not entirely," Asher said, a grim, determined smile touching his lips. He began gathering supplies with his free hand. I have a small, long-range medical transport. It's designed for off-station specimen collection. It's not much, but it's fast, shielded, and registered under a shell corporation. They won't be looking for it." Kalira's eyes widened. "You would become a fugitive? For me?" "I became a fugitive the moment I decided not to let a beautiful creature bleed to death on my floor," Asher replied, helping her to her feet. "You and Nix are my patients." "I don't abandon my patients." As sirens wailed outside the sealed clinic, Asher carefully lifted the recovering Nix while Kalira leaned heavily against him. A pulse pistol she'd taken from one of the unconscious guards clutched in her hand. They were a strange, desperate trio, a renegade doctor, a wounded monarch, and the living symbol of her reign. They had passed the point of no return. Together they moved towards the secret sub-level hangar, their footsteps echoing the start of a rebellion that would either save an empire or see them all reduced to dust. The Stargazer, Asher's small medical transport, sliced through the blackness of space, its advanced stealth systems masking its escape from Nexus 7. Asher had broadcast a looping emergency medical transmission, claiming a critical patient transfer, a deception that would buy them a few precious hours at most. The ship was cramped, forcing them into a constant, charged proximity. Kalira sat in the co-pilot's seat, her crimson uniform replaced with a simple gray ship suit, her shoulder bandaged with Asher's strange, effective, human-derived regenerative matrix. Nix rested in a specialized medical stasis pod between them, his vital signs finally stabilizing. "Where are we going?" Kalira asked, her voice quiet, the regal authority replaced by a weary vulnerability. "There's a rogue colony in the Galarian Nebula called New Harmony," Asher replied, his eyes on the navigation display. "It was founded by deserters and refugees. They don't ask questions and they don't welcome outside authorities. It's the only place I can think of where we might be safe for a while." "My enemies will have seized the palace by now," she murmured, her gaze distant and haunted. "My loyal counselors, my people, they are all at Ravik's mercy." She clenched her hands into tight fists. "You are doing this because of your oath as a healer," she stated, not as a question, but as an attempt to understand. "You feel responsible for your patients." "It started that way," Asher admitted, turning to look at her. In the soft glow of the control panel, her features were softer, the weight of her crown momentarily lifted. "But it's more than that now. What Ravik is doing, it's not just a coup, it's evil. He's twisting your people's traditions into weapons of hatred and fear. He preys on their fear of outsiders," she said, a bitter edge to her voice. "My mother believed in outreach, in alliances. Ravik and his faction believe it dilutes our bloodline, our culture. They likely assassinated her and made it look like a shuttle accident." A silence filled the cockpit, heavy with unspoken grief and a shared sense of injustice. The days that followed blurred into a strange new routine. They cared for Nix together, changing his dressings, recalibrating his stasis pod. The simple shared tasks forged a bond between them, an easy intimacy that felt both natural and terrifyingly dangerous. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their vastly different lives. He told her of his quiet childhood on a remote agricultural moon, of his fascination with the infinite variety of life in the galaxy. She, in turn, revealed the lonely gilded cage of her royal upbringing, the immense pressure of her title, and her secret passion for xenobiology, a passion she had to hide from the traditionalist court. One simulated night cycle, as the ship's lights were dimmed, Asher found her staring at the swirling colors of the nebula on the main view screen. "I never thought I would see this with my own eyes," she said softly. "The Thean royal family is forbidden from leaving our home system except for state matters. It is considered unseemly, a risk to the purity of the line." "That's not a tradition," Asher said gently. "That's a prison." She turned to him, her amber eyes searching his face. You are not like anyone I have ever met, Asher Hayes. You look at a baroness and see a biologist. You look at an empire and see a prison. You do not fear my title or my claws." He took a step closer, the small space between them crackling with an undeniable energy. "I'm a doctor, Kalira. I see the person underneath, and I see someone who is carrying the weight of a galaxy on her shoulders, and who deserves a moment of peace." He reached out, his hand hesitating for a moment before gently tucking a stray piece of her silver fur behind her elegant ear. The touch was electric. Her skin was warm, her fur impossibly soft. She leaned into his touch, a low, involuntary purr vibrating in her chest. The sound did something to Asher's composure, stripping away his professionalism and leaving behind a raw, aching need. He could feel the rapid beat of her two hearts, see the dilation of her pupils. It was a look of unmistakable invitation. He knew it was madness. She was royalty, a member of another species, a political refugee under his protection. 1,000 rules and reasons screamed at him to step back. But as her hand came up to rest on his chest, her claws carefully sheathed, he ignored them all. Their first kiss was a collision of worlds, tentative and yet charged with all the danger and desperation of their flight. Her lips were softer than he'd imagined, and the faint, sharp pressure of her fangs against his tongue was a thrilling shock to his system. She tasted of unknown spices and the wild, clean scent of ozone that clung to her. The purr in her chest deepened into a rumbling growl of pleasure that vibrated through them both. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the universe outside the ship seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them in the dim, humming light of the cockpit. From his pod, Nix watched them, letting out a soft, contented chirp. "This," Asher said, his voice rough with emotion, "is incredibly complicated." Kalira's laugh was a wild, beautiful sound. "My dear doctor," she whispered, tracing the line of his jaw with a single, sharp claw. "Things were complicated the moment you decided to save a stranger's heart." She pulled him back to her, and this time, there was no hesitation. In the heart of the lonely, silent void, two fugitives found a different kind of sanctuary, a connection that defied species, politics, and the war that was chasing them across the stars. New Harmony was a chaotic, beautiful mess. The settlement sprawled across a lush, bioengineered valley, a patchwork quilt of architectural styles from a dozen different species, all coexisting in a state of carefully negotiated peace. Their rented dwelling was a simple single-story unit with a small garden, a far cry from a palace, but it was safe. It was anonymous. For weeks, they built a life. Asher's xenobiological skills were in high demand at the local clinic, while Kalira, under an assumed name, found work as a translator, her innate grasp of language and diplomacy making her an invaluable asset. They became for the first time simply Asher and Kalira. The evenings were theirs. In the privacy of their small home, they explored the new, uncharted territory of their relationship. Every difference was a source of wonder. He learned the sensitive spot just behind her ears that could make her purr with pleasure, and she discovered the surprising strength in his human hands. "I never knew happiness could be so quiet," she confessed one night, as they lay tangled together under the light of two alien moons. "In my world, every pairing is a political calculation. Love is a liability. Here, it's just this," Asher said, kissing the elegant stripe of fur that ran down her shoulder. "And what is this?" she asked, her amber eyes serious. "Freedom," he said after a moment. "To be with you, I am not a baroness or a symbol. I am just Kalira." But the weight of her crown was a ghost that haunted their peaceful exile. As the weeks turned into months, Asher saw the ruler re-emerging. She would spend hours scanning illicit news feeds from her home world, her expression growing darker with each report of Ravik's tyrannical rule. He was dismantling her mother's progressive policies, executing loyalists, and isolating their people from the rest of the galaxy. One evening, she was unusually silent, staring out at the twin moons as Nyx chased glowing insects in the garden. "You're thinking of home," Asher said gently. She nodded, her ears twitching. "My people are suffering. Every day I hide here, Ravik's grip tightens. He is turning our home into a cage, just like the one I escaped." Asher took her hand, feeling the familiar, careful way she kept her claws retracted so as not to harm his softer skin. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his heart aching. "Coming here? With me?" Her head snapped towards him, her eyes blazing with a fierce loyalty that took his breath away. "Never," she said, her voice a low growl. "You and Nyx, you are my home now. But what if I could have both? What if we could change things?" The question hung in the cool night air between them. Returning meant war. It meant putting their love, born in the quiet spaces of their exile, on display for a galaxy of politicians and assassins. It meant risking everything they had built. "He has the armies, the fleet," Asher said. "We have nothing." "We have the truth," she countered, the strategist reawakening fully. "And we have something he could never understand, an alliance. My people fear outsiders because they have never known one. If I returned, not just as their Baroness, but with you, a human who saved my life and my heart, it would be a symbol more powerful than any weapon. It would prove that cooperation is not weakness, but our only path to survival." The audacity of it was staggering. To use their forbidden, interspecies love as a political tool, a catalyst for revolution. It was brilliant. It was terrifying. "Whatever you decide," Asher said, pulling her close, his voice thick with a love that felt as vast as the cosmos above them. "We do it together." Nyx, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, abandoned his hunt and came to press against them, a warm, purring circle of solidarity. Their peaceful interlude was over. The Baroness had to reclaim her throne, and the simple veterinarian from a forgotten space station would stand by her side, ready to help her burn the old world down to build a new one from the ashes. The warning came as a single, encrypted word from a loyalist still embedded in the palace: hunted. 3 of Ravik's elite Black Fang destroyers had entered the system. Their sanctuary had been compromised. In minutes they were moving, their practiced efficiency a testament to their time on the run. "The Stargazer is too well known now," Asher said, grabbing their emergency supplies. "They'll have it flagged on every port scanner in the sector." "I have another idea," Kalira said, a dangerous glint in her eye. An hour later, they were hidden in the foul-smelling maintenance crawl space of a refuse hauler, bound for a grimy mining outpost on the sector's edge. Through a grimy viewport, they watched the sleek black destroyers descend upon New Harmony, their weapon ports open and glowing. The hunt had resumed. From the mining outpost, they began a desperate, zigzagging journey across the outer rim, bartering passage on smugglers' ships and pirate vessels, their identities shifting with every jump. During the flight, Kalira established a secure channel with her resistance network. The news was bleak. Ravik had declared himself Lord Regent, dissolving the council and ruling by decree. He was using propaganda to paint Kalira as a traitor who had abandoned her people and defiled her bloodline with an alien lover. He was twisting their love story into a weapon against them. "He's consolidating power," she seethed, pacing the cramped confines of a cargo container. "He's building a cult of personality based on fear and xenophobia." Then, the message they had been dreading came through. Ravik had scheduled a coronation ceremony. He was going to declare himself emperor, shattering centuries of tradition and making his rule absolute. "We're out of time," Asher said grimly. Once he's crowned, any move against him will be seen as treason by even the most loyal houses. Then we must strike before the coronation, Kalira declared. My loyalists have secured a single ship, the Shadow Claw. It's an old stealth vessel hidden since my mother's reign. They are waiting for us at these coordinates. Late in the ship's artificial night cycle, after a tense tactical briefing with her commanders via hologram, Kalira found Asher in their small quarters. The Thayan soldiers, even the loyal ones, regarded him with a mixture of awe and deep suspicion. They don't trust me, he said. They will, she replied, sinking down beside him, the exhaustion of command etched on her face. You have proven yourself 100 times over. When we were cornered by bounty hunters on Hex's station, your knowledge of their alien anatomy is what saved us. When I contracted that radiation fever, your human-based medicine was the only thing that worked. You are more than my companion, Asher. You are my most trusted advisor. Her words were a balm to his soul, but the weight of their mission pressed down on him. Their plan to assault the palace is suicide, he said. Ravik will have the capital on lockdown. They'll be slaughtered. I know, she agreed, her voice barely a whisper. But they are desperate. It is a plan born of hopelessness. Then we give them hope, Asher said, his mind beginning to work, to see the problem not as a soldier, but as a biologist. We don't use weapons. We use medicine. Kalira looked at him, her head tilted. You want to infiltrate the most heavily armed fortress in the quadrant, using a medical emergency? Precisely, he said, a daring, audacious plan blooming in his mind. Ravik's greatest weakness is his arrogance and his paranoia. He's so focused on military threats, he's ignoring public health. We create a pathogen, something with terrifying visible symptoms, but ultimately harmless and non-lethal. We release it in the capital's lower districts. It will create panic. He'll be forced to call for outside help, specialists from the Galactic Health Consortium, specialists who look a lot like us. The brilliance of it, the sheer, beautiful insanity of it lit up her face. It was a plan that no Thayan strategist would ever conceive. It used their enemy's own prejudices against him. My dear doctor, she purred, her eyes gleaming with a predatory light he had come to adore. You are truly a revolutionary. I'm just a veterinarian, Asher said softly. She took his face in her hands, her claws carefully sheathed. You were never just anything. Asher Hayes, you saved my heart, my life, and now you will help me save my people. As the Shadow Claw altered course towards Thayan space, Asher knew they were flying into the jaws of the beast. But for the first time, he felt they weren't just running. They were fighting back, armed not with lasers and ships, but with knowledge, love, and a pathogen that would bring an empire to its knees. The medical shuttle, emblazoned with the neutral insignia of the Galactic Health Consortium, descended towards Thea Prime's capital. The city was a breathtaking sight of spiraling towers and graceful arches, but a pall of fear hung over it, visible in the heavily armed checkpoints and military patrols. Inside the shuttle, Asher and Kalira, disguised in sterile, feature-concealing environmental suits, prepared for the final act. The engineered virus had worked perfectly. Released 3 days prior, it had spread like wildfire, creating a panic that Ravik's forces couldn't contain. He had been forced to request aid, just as they'd planned. Once we're inside the Royal Medical Facility, Commander Lyra and her team will move into position, Kalira murmured, her voice a digitized whisper through the suit's comms. We have 12 hours before Ravik's physicians realize the virus is a fake. They were escorted through layers of security and into the heart of the palace medical wing. The scene was one of controlled chaos. Citizens filled every bed, their skin covered in the alarming but harmless bioluminescent lesions the virus produced. Our first priority is the Central Atmospheric and Water Reclamation System, Asher announced, his altered voice full of an authority that made the overworked medical staff snap to attention. "We must prevent airborne and waterborne transmission." The senior physician, a weary-looking Thean, wrung his hands. "Those systems are under the direct control of the Lord Regent's personal guard. Access is forbidden." "Unacceptable!" Kalira snapped, her voice carrying the unmistakable echo of command. "Consortium protocols override all local authority during a Class 3 outbreak. Would the Regent prefer we declare this entire planet a quarantine zone, effective immediately? Nothing in, nothing out. Especially not his coronation fleet." The threat worked. The physician paled and scurried off to arrange access. The environmental control hub was the nerve center of the entire palace. From there, they could not only access security systems, but also implement the final phase of their plan. As they worked, an alarm blared. "Intruder alert! Unidentified biometric signature in environmental control," a robotic voice announced. "They found us!" Kalira snarled. "Ravik must have updated the scanners to my family's specific biosigns." Just as she spoke, the first explosion rocked the palace. Commander Lyra's forces had begun their assault. "We have to get to the Grand Council chamber," Kalira said, ripping off her helmet. "If I can present the Council with proof of his treason before he executes them, I can invoke the right of challenge." They fought their way through the corridors, a whirlwind of chaos as loyalist guards clashed with Ravik's elite soldiers. Asher, using his precise knowledge of anatomy, moved with a deadly grace, incapacitating enemies with nerve strikes and pressure point attacks, his medical tools becoming unlikely weapons. Outside the massive doors of the council chamber, they found Commander Lyra, wounded but holding the line. "Ravik is inside," she grunted, "holding the last of the council hostage." Kalira turned to Asher, a lifetime of unspoken words passing between them in a single glance. "I'll create a diversion," he said. "He'll be expecting a frontal assault. He won't be expecting an attack from his own life support system." Before she could protest, he kissed her, a hard, fierce kiss filled with love and the terror of what was to come, and then vanished into a service duct. Moments later, Kalira burst through the main doors. Ravik stood on the dais, holding a ceremonial blade to the throat of the eldest council member. "Cousin," he sneered, "come to watch your world end." "I have come to reclaim it," she declared, her voice ringing with power. "I challenge you, Ravik, under the ancient laws." Ravik laughed. "A challenge? You have no one left!" At that moment, the chamber's ventilation systems exploded, spewing a thick, disorienting smoke. Through the chaos, Asher emerged, moving silently to stand among the panicked council members. At the same time, Commander Lyra activated a hidden holo projector, displaying